If you're interested in what I look like in real life, then make sure you check out my Instagram at Joe the Insomniak. Hey everyone, just want to say, if any of you are dealing with any internal problems, then playing an instrument can be a really good way to feel better. I found this throughout my entire life. I've always played guitar and piano, but whenever I play them, when I'm feeling down or just focus on that, it seems to bring me back to myself more and helps me feel a lot better in myself. So that's just a thought. Anyway, I hope you enjoy these stories and have a great day. I was watching my daughter's kids while she and her husband got out of town. They have a teenage daughter. Let's say her name is Alessa. At like 3 AM, I'm awoken by a weird rustling sound and look out the window and see movement. I saw a boy emerge from the bushes on the side of the house. I saw a bike tossed onto the lawn that wasn't ours. My first thought was that it's a robber checking out houses, but since he looked so young and came through on a bike, I figured scaring him straight would be enough for him to decide whether to go home or not. I didn't want to ruin a teenager's chance of life by calling the cops straight away, so I went out to the porch, flipped the lights on and said, "Hey, can I help you?" The guy appears surprised and nervous, wearing a Letterman-style jacket, but once I got a clear view of him in the streetlights, he seems much older than I thought he was initially. He walked up closer to the house and said, "Yeah, I'm looking for Alessa." I gave him a disapproving glare, hoping he'd realise he came looking for a girl late at night to a grumpy old person. I'm thinking what must have happened is Alessa knew her parents were going out of town and she might have a secret boyfriend or something. It was late and I was alone with several kids, so I don't want him coming any closer to the home. Also, I thought it was weird he comes so late. To be sure Alessa actually wanted to talk to him, I said, "I'm sorry, who?" And he said Alessa, but he messes up the last part of her name. I said, "You wait there." He started to walk up, but I got this sick burning feeling in my gut. Instinct kicked in. I "Oh no, stop, freeze." Then said, "You stay right there. This is private property. You don't come any closer, just wait." So I go in. Alessa is asleep in one room over from where the rustling first occurred. I wake her up and say something to the effect of, "I really don't know what the big deal was to have friends over at this time of night, but you have to tell them to go home." She says she has no clue what I'm talking about. I said there's a guy outside asking for you. Confused, she gets up and goes to the window, sees him and goes white as a ghost. He asks for me? Yeah, by name. Call the police, I've never seen him in my life. I call 911 immediately, but when I'm on the phone to them, Alessa started tugging at my arm saying he's coming up. I had younger kids in the house to think about, so I kept the door latched and pulled it open enough to yell at him saying, "I asked my husband and none of them know you, and I'm calling 911. He got angry and started yelling for her to come out. Thankfully the police come pretty quickly, and when he heard the sirens he bolted out of there. The police followed him but didn't find him. They advised us to take her off all social media where her account wasn't private, and if it is public, make it private. And then buy a heavy duty lock, and she slept in my room for the remainder of her parents being away." When I was 7 or 8, my family went to a beach and rented a room. We had the kind of rooms where you had to rent out both, and they connect through a door. Like, there's the doors to leave the room, and doors to the other room. In the room connected to ours, there's this army family, military dad, some kids and a wife. My older sister was supposed to be watching me, as we were down at the jacuzzi in the evening. As we're playing and hanging out, having a good time, I didn't get out much, was naive and all around a kid. We're both white-skinned, blue eyes, and blonde hair. This mum literally sits in the jacuzzi with us. She starts talking to us and is just making herself comfortable. I was very naive as a kid. Eventually, we start taking books, and she starts talking about her kids. Eventually, we start talking about books, and she starts to talk about her kids, and we're just having a good conversation. Really in depth, I felt. My sister decides she wants to go back to the room, but I don't. I want to stay and talk. So my sister goes back to the room. Now it's just 7-year-old me and some 40-year-old woman. It should have set off alarm bells, but not to me. So she starts talking about going and walking on the beach. It's 10 PM. She wants to go on the beach for a walk and get shells. I thought it was a great idea. I'd get to walk out on the beach at night. I felt so free and like a big kid. I didn't need my sister or anything, so I ran back to the room to tell my grandparents that I'm walking on the beach with Sue, or whatever her name was. I remember my grandmother reading her book, barely listening to me. She just stood off. So I start walking down the creepy motel corridor. So I'm going through the stairwell, which feels like it's out of a movie. Too bad I've never seen it. So I'm walking through the stairwell. The mum's way at the bottom telling me hurry up. While walking through the stairs, Army Dad comes running out saying, "Hey, I learnt about you. Your mum is calling you. It's really important, we gotta go." Basically grabbing me by the wrist, leading me out of the room. He knocks on the door and explains what happened. I never thought much of it until about a year ago. This woman was leading me alone to the beach at night. This army guy had a terrible feeling and intervened. This didn't happen to me, but my father. He joined the Navy somewhere around 80 and 84. He's told me many stories over the years, but this one sticks out in my mind the most as it's his first time at sea on a submarine. He recently got promoted and opted to become a submariner because of the exclusivity of the position. Less crew, usually only room for 1 or 2 people in your Pacific trade. Basically, you have to do the best to get on the sub. Anyway, he's on his first night out on the submarine. Everyone's asleep on their bunks. If you haven't seen them, they're usually stacked 3 high and in line on the side of the hull in a hallway formation. My dad got in one and it's at the very back. However, he wakes up at 2 AM to alarms and lights going off. Everyone's rushing out of their bunks and out to the hatch into the next section. My dad being the last one to wake up, last out of the bunks. Ended up to the latch too late. It closed, sealed, and locked in front of him with someone shouting on the other side, "Mike, find the leak." Apparently, a leak sprung somewhere around the bunks. It either had to be fixed or that section of the submarine would have to stay sealed in order to prevent the rest of the submarine sinking, and hence him drowning. Eventually he found it, sealed it, and the hatch was opened. He has lots of other stories, but this one scared him the most. I'm an 18-year-old female student, and from where I'm from, July is an exam period, so I have to drag my backpack around during that time. Anyway, it's 7 AM, and my exam wasn't going to start until 9, so I decide to call Uber and get there early because I live at least 1 hour away from the exam centre. The car arrives on time, and I go in. Now, I'm not the kind of person to judge someone with at first glance, but for some reason, the driver made me feel really uneasy. He was in his mid-40s, had dark circles around his eyes, and was smirking a lot. He was silent for a good 10 minutes, but he starts asking questions. He says if I'm a student, and I don't want to answer, thinking that he'll try to hit on me, so I just lie and say that I'm a proctor, hoping he would back off, and God was I wrong. He starts to smirk and tell me he would always cheat on his exams, and that I was a mean person in a joking way for ruining people's lives. I don't know why I did this, but I chuckled at this comment, and it triggered him to thinking that I liked him. My bad. He then started to get personal, asking me how old I was, and if I would let my kid cheat. I lied and said I was 34, and that I have a 16-year-old kid. I was hoping this would drive him off, since I was old and had a kid, but he got creepier. He then told me I looked like a strict parent, and started saying weird stuff. He then said to me if my husband was strict like that, and started saying, oh, is he in your life or not? And even thinking I have a husband, he still doesn't shut up. Now, I noticed he's moved to a completely different region from where I should be able to take my exam, going in literally the wrong direction. I start to panic, but was afraid he would do something if I confronted him, since we're in the middle of a rural area. So I decide to fake a phone call from my co-worker, pretending to talk to her, and tell her that I'm in an Uber and I'll be there soon. And I'm kidding you not, he literally immediately turns a car around, going to the direction we came from. He continued making horrible comments, and I swear this turns my blood cold. As we approached the centre, he told me that I should catch someone cheating, come back with him, let him drive them so he can make extra money, and after that he would take me to my address. The creepy part is that he had studied it by heart. Legit corpse, number, he was looking me into the eyes, said, I know where you live. I still remember the mark he drove, a blue Nissan. If I ever Uber again and get stuck with a blue Nissan, I will cancel it no matter what. I didn't call the company because I'm afraid he knows my address. I just hate that this happened. My family loves travelling, like all the time, so about a year ago, my family took a trip to France. At this time, I'm a 9th grader and in high school. Before the trip, my mum spent a few months learning French. My sisters have some basic knowledge of the language, so we're set. So we flew into some country in Europe, I forget which, and took the train all the way to Paris. Once we arrived in the train station, we took a few minutes to prepare ourselves before heading out and looking for a taxi. We were walking when suddenly, a guy comes up to us. He knew some English, and said, are we looking for a taxi? Since he had a large van taxi. My family was happy since family, and there isn't enough seats in normal taxis, so we agreed. We walk over to him, and he points out to a large black van, with another guy sitting in the driver's seat. Now, I know thinking of it, there is no reason for 2 taxi drivers to be in a car. The weird part was that it had no taxi indicators, or anything showing what it actually was. I remember my parents exchanging glances at each other, but going along with it. At this point, we haven't even discussed prices or anything, even where we're heading. He just opened the rather large trunk, and started chucking our bags inside there. At this point, my mum was worried. She demanded an answer on why there were no taxi indicators. The man started switching English and French and wasn't given a clear answer. She didn't push it, My mum asked for a price. It was a bit costly, but there's no other regular vans around. At this point, the man's getting to our lack of language and noticed my dad's attitude change. He seems more concerned. He went up to the man, stopped him at putting the last piece of luggage into the van and said, "Show me your taxi license." At this time, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a taxi license, and I guess he didn't either. His eyes widened and he seems nervous. In broken English, he says, right, taxi license, and pretended to pack his pocket and act like he left it at home. My parents at this point grabbed our luggage, said thank you, we don't need one now, and quickly took us across the street where we merged with a large group of people. We see the van suddenly speed off. We eventually found a taxi terminal and a large van. We never spoke of the event again. But I know we were so close to being kidnapped, it horrifies me.